Japan was in a celebratory mood. The first 3 days of New Year are typically the busiest holiday period in Japan. It's a time when friends and family get together and catch up with each other's lives. I was enjoying a buffet with friends at a restaurant in Tokyo on New Year's afternoon. We felt a slow tremor. Earthquake alerts began to pop up on our phones. At first, we weren't bothered much. Japan residents are used to earthquakes. But soon my phone started buzzing again. Pamela, my editor in Singapore, texted me. I soon found myself in front of the camera, providing live updates on CNA. Tsunamis continue to hit the coast along the Sea of Japan. Now, the highest tsunami is believed to have hit Wajima in Ishikawa Prefecture. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida met reporters late at night. He was frustrated by the lack of information regarding the situation on the ground.
現在、現地の情報を全力で収集しているところです。また、自衛隊機で防災担当副大臣以下の内閣府調査チーム、金沢に到着をいたしました。そして私自身も坂口輪島市長、泉谷鈴市長と直接電話でお話をさせていただきました。坂口市長からは過去にない広範囲の被災で道路が寸断され、電気、水も止まっている、携帯もつながらない、プッシュ型で物資を送ってほしい。
The sun set early as Japan was in winter. The worst hit regions were remote rural areas. With roads damaged and phone lines down, it was difficult to reach the quake-affected area. As day broke, it became clear that the situation on the ground was bad. Donning a blue workman's outfit, which signaled the government switching into a major disaster management mode, Prime Minister Kishida gave a grim update.
これまでに多数の人的被害や建物崩壊、火災など非常に大規模な被害が確認されている、こうしたこの報告でありました。自衛隊、警察、消防などの緊急援助部隊等については、昨夜のうちに自衛隊の航空機などあらゆる手段を用いて現地に部隊を進め、順次救命救助等の活動を開始しています。
I was trying to find a way to reach the disaster zone with a camera crew. It was challenging because phone lines and transport services to the quake-hit region were cut off. Just when I was trying to arrange my trip, breaking news hit TV screens again.
Japan Airlines plane has caught fire at Tokyo's Haneda Airport, and all runways at the airport have been closed. Michiyo, horrifying images that we're seeing at the Haneda Airport.
We've been hearing that the Coast Guard saying that their aircraft M4722 based at Haneda Airport collided into the Japan Airlines passenger plane with 369 passengers on board and 17 crew members. Miraculously, everyone on the passenger jet was safely evacuated. Not so for the Coast Guard plane, which was on its way to deliver relief supplies to the quake zone. 5 crew members died. Only the pilot survived. As the country recovered from the shock of the plane collision at Haneda, the situation on Noto Peninsula remained grim. Death toll continued to rise. By now, bullet train services to Kanazawa, the prefectural capital of quake-hit Ishikawa, had resumed. On the 4th of January, I booked train tickets for myself to head there. As I sat in the train, I heard from the train announcement that the worst-hit rural regions remained inaccessible. At Kanazawa Station, I came close the first time to the destruction caused by the New Year's Day earthquake. These safety doors for the bullet train could not be opened. They suffered damage from tremors. The mall connected to the train station was also under repair. Kanazawa was a popular stopover destination for foreign tourists. It's often compared to the old Japanese capital Kyoto, but less congested. Kanazawa Castle, once the base of a powerful feudal domain, was damaged and had to close. Naturally, shops around the castle had very few customers. I ventured farther from the city center. There I saw these toppled houses. They were damaged by earthquake-triggered landslides. Residents said their lives had been turned upside down too.
最初こっちに住んでまして、お隣を買って、夫婦2人だけの小さな家を建てたんですけど、で息子たちがここに入ってっていうふうにしてたんですけど、まさかこんなふうになるとは。罹災証明っていうのがあって、それだけは申請したんですけど、それもそんなにあるとは思えないので、ちょっとこれはどうなるのか全然先行きはわからないんですけど。
But the prefectural capital was far from the worst hit. I'm Michiyo Ishida, CNA's Japan correspondent. I was in Ishikawa Prefecture on the Sea of Japan coast in the immediate aftermath of the earthquake that struck on New Year's Day. With my camera crew, we were trying to visit Wajima, a town about 110 kilometers from Kanazawa, the prefectural capital. As local train and bus services were suspended, we decided to drive there. The road to Wajima was treacherous. Some sections of the main highway were damaged by the earthquake. We had to drive on narrow public roads. Even these were not safe. We had to navigate big cracks in the road and debris from landslides. The weather was also not on our side. Some parts of the journey were wet and slippery due to heavy rain and snowfall. The traffic was busy. From the other direction, emergency vehicles whizzed by. Collapsed homes could be seen everywhere. After 6 hours, we reached Wajima. It was a journey that typically takes only 2 hours. We had heard that Wajima suffered extensive damage. Still, I wasn't prepared for what I was going to witness. The central region of Wajima, famous for its traditional lacquerware industry and morning market, was reduced to ashes. A massive fire broke out after the earthquake, tearing through an area of more than 50,000 square meters where some 300 buildings used to stand. I met an elderly couple who lived just nearby. They told me they ran a Wajima lacquerware chopstick factory on the other side of the town. It collapsed in the earthquake and has since been off limits. Their house was intact, although the road surrounding it was severely damaged. Mrs. Hatanaka said many lives were lost in their neighborhood.
おせち食べて1日ですからね、食べて、ちょっとゆっくりしようかなと思っていたところへ4時10分ですか、もうぐらぐら来たらもうそれからずっと動きっぱなしで、台所のテーブルの下に隠れてガタガタガタガタするもんで出られませんでしたわ、外へ。ほんで金沢から10いくつぐらいの男の子がうちへお正月で帰ってきて、そのまま生き埋めになったんですよ。4日くらいそのままなかなか救出できなくって、もう亡くなってしまって、それからその近くにいたおばあちゃんと 息子さんもそんな状態で生き埋めになって、その方らも2人とも亡くなって。
She showed me a few of her chopsticks that survived. They're intricately designed using local craftsmanship. Also destroyed in the fire was Wajima's iconic morning market, which existed since the 9th century. It was a tragic sight for locals. Yukako Oke evacuated with her mother. Her house was not burned down, but they couldn't return home yet, as the entire area had been closed off.
ただただ切ないですね。なんだろう。自分の町がこんなことになるなんてね、想像もしてなかったし。
At the time, residents told me many were still under the debris. I spoke to a gentleman who did not want to be interviewed on camera. He told me that his daughter and his daughter's mother-in-law lost their lives here in the fire. Wajima had a population of over 23,000. Over 100 died as a result of the earthquake, accounting for close to half of the total number of lives lost in Ishikawa. The New Year's Day earthquake was the worst in Japan since the 2011 Great East Japan earthquake that set off massive tsunamis and a nuclear meltdown. In Ishikawa, around 43,000 homes were damaged. Most died under collapsed structures, according to Ishikawa Prefecture. That's because many homes in the prefecture were not earthquake-proof, and they were old. 87% of the structures and buildings in Japan are earthquake-resistant. But in Wajima, for example, the percentage of those with anti-seismic strength is way below the national average, or only 45%. The elderly make up half of the population in many cities and towns on Noto Peninsula. With very few young people around, they lack the strength needed to reinforce their homes. For many, it was also not seen as a priority until the New Year's Day earthquake. Records show Noto Peninsula has not been directly hit by a tremor of more than 7 on the Richter scale for the past 100 years. Designated as one of Japan's 500 important wetlands is the Nanao Bay area. In the western part of the bay is the famous Wakura Onsen. For the inns and hotels in Wakura, New Year's was supposed to be the busiest season, but the New Year's Day earthquake completely wrecked it. The famous Kagaya Ryokan suffered damage. Guests and residents had to be evacuated to a nearby school. I met Haruko Hoizumi there. The 84-year-old local was working at one of Kagaya Group hotels when the earthquake struck. She volunteered to guide guests to this local elementary school, which has since served as a temporary shelter.
事務所の人たちはお客さんの案内っていうかあれをするように一生懸命名簿を見ながら誰も残らないようにみんなやってましたから。でもし手伝うようなことがあったらまた連絡くださいって支配人にお願いしてきたけど、私仕事してないとダメなんです。体具合悪くて。
As the leader of the local hot spring union explained, it's a challenging and complicated operation.
状況がひどいもので、周りの目の不自由な人とかそういうところ回って、で出して、この小学校の方へ来なさいと。それから私はここに詰めたという感じで、初日は1200人この小学校のぎゅうぎゅう詰めにいたんです。 加賀屋さんの従業員とかそういうのは全部世話して、それで旅館加賀屋さんの物資ありますね、それを全部こちらの方へ持ってきて、それで布団関係も全部加賀屋さんからエストン輸送で。
Although they had no running water, the amenities from the five-star hotel provided some comfort to residents who couldn't return home. It was bitterly cold at this time of the year in Japan. Fortunately, roads leading to Wakura were not closed. Relief supplies managed to reach the evacuation center from all over Japan and by the self-defense forces in the immediate aftermath of the quake. In neighboring Shika town, where the strongest jolt possible to measure on Japan's seismic intensity scale of 7 was recorded, the situation was more difficult for evacuees, especially for people like 78-year-old Kazuko Shimbo.
寝れないもんこれじゃ。寝れない？こんなんですよほら。あの子ってね。仮設住宅のトイレに入ってるわけじゃないですけど、そんな時こそね、ちゃんとしたトイレが欲しい。そして一回座ったらね、さっとこう立ち上がれないの。私らはなんかにこう捕まらないと辛いわ。
Makeshift toilets were set up a few days after the quake, but without help. Using it was a challenge for those wheelchair-bound. On the day I visited, there were aid workers to assist the weak elderly to the toilet.
今水でないのが一番辛い。こんなとこ行ってきてどこにこう地べたで手触るかもわからないですよ。それでも手洗えないんだもん。
With underground water pipes damaged by the earthquake, water outages became a major problem in these quake-hit rural regions. A week after the big earthquake, the Ministry of Health warned that cases of respiratory infections had been detected at shelters. A widespread outbreak could be deadly for the elderly. The government estimated that across 3 prefectures, including Ishikawa, where Shika is located, the earthquake had caused damages and losses amounting to as much as 2.6 trillion yen, or about $17.6 billion. That would make it Japan's 3rd most damaging quake in monetary terms since the 1995 Kobe earthquake. Masahito Yamamoto is a local resident and head of the Togi ward in Shika. He showed me around the neighborhood where he lived all his life. We went to his home, a house estimated to be at least more than 60 years old. It was in a mess, and parts of it had been damaged by the earthquake. Mr. Yamamoto had been trying to retrieve the family's important items from the house, as he had made a difficult decision.
もう家壊す予定です。壊すんですか？はい。ああ。もうちょっと前傾いてるんで、酔うんですよ。傾いたところで生活すると、もう諦めました。
Other homes in the old neighborhood are most likely to face a similar fate. On the 14th of January, Prime Minister Michiyo Ishida visited the region for the first time since the earthquake. A committee to oversee recovery and reconstruction has been formed and will be supported by allocations of a contingency fund in government budget. A month after the earthquake, media reports said residents in many parts of Noto Peninsula, the northern tip of Ishikawa Prefecture, directly hit by the earthquake, still had no running water. The situation could continue for a couple more months, and some 10,000 people still lived in evacuation centers. The New Year's Day earthquake has exposed worrying trends in the region. Ishikawa, for one, is aging faster than the national average, with 30.5% of its 1.1 million population over 65 as of 2022. There are concerns how the region is going to be able to pick itself up given the large elderly population there, and whether the disaster might quicken their decline.